Hey guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl, and today I'm going to talk about my September reads. So if you guys aren't familiar, I do 2 wrap-ups every month. Usually last month I only did 1 because I didn't read enough, but I will have an audiobook wrap-up that will be coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that one as well. These are all of the books I completed in September. I read 5, which doesn't sound like very many, but considering I read 1 last month and overall this year has just not been very good for reading, I am so happy, and I had almost a perfect reading month. I loved everything I read except for 1/2 things. Kind of bummed because the very last book I read this month I didn't really like, and everything else I did, but I kind of threw it in there and it was kind of like on a whim. So I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to like it anyway. So we are going to talk about the things I didn't like that much first because they're the least exciting to me. So first up, I DNF'd Stealing Snow by Danielle Paige. I technically DNF'd this in August, but I just kept saying to myself that I was going to finish it, so I didn't talk about it in my August wrap-up, and then in September I was finally like, I'm not going to read it, which really bummed me out because I literally had like 60 pages left, but I was just like, I don't really care. It's been like 3 weeks since I picked it up and I don't care at all. So this I thought was a Snow White retelling, and it's kind of like a magical powers / intercrossing worlds fantasy. It starts out in our lead character is in an asylum. Things are very mysterious. She's very like grouchy and she doesn't know why, and then she kind of crosses over into another universe and it's like all fantastical. So the reason I was iffy about this one to begin with was I really did not like Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Paige. I read half of that one before I DNF'd it. The writing in that one was just too, it was too bad for me. For me it was like it was written for teenagers instead of written about teenagers, if that makes sense. It was like they threw hokey things in there in certain languages and certain situations in there to be like, yeah, teenagers are gonna love this, instead of just being like, I'm gonna write a good book that involves teenagers, if that makes sense. Granted, I'm in my 30s, so teenagers might love it and it might be great. I know it's a really popular book, so kind of take that with a grain of salt. And I had kind of a similar issue with this one. It was just a little bit more hokey and goofy than I like. I mean, I've read books like this that are like just like fun books, and they're, you know, not to be taken too seriously, and the magic isn't super in depth and all that kind of stuff. I don't really care about the romance or the bad guys, and I didn't like the characters, and so it was just a whole thing. So I don't think I gave this one a star rating because I try not to rate my DNFs if I can help it, but I might have since I read most of it. But you know, there's that. Take it as you will, but it's not a Snow White retelling, so keep that in mind. The very last book that I read this month was Suspicion by Alexandra Monier, but I'm going to talk about it here because it was my least favorite, besides Stitching Snow. So this one, look at this cover. First of all, we've got this girl in this maze, and it kind of has this gothic feel to it, and it's set in an English manor, and there's like mystery that happens and murder and death and things like that. I have been in that kind of a mood for fall, and so I picked this one up. It's been on my TBR for a long time, and unfortunately I didn't really like it that much. I did read it in like a day and a half. It's very short. It's like 300 pages, but very, very quick to read. And our lead character is part of like a royal line in England, and this is set in modern times, and she winds up being inheriting something. Her parents have died and like all kinds of stuff happens. There's all this mystery. She had lived in America and now she's got to move back to England, and there's like mysteries that need to be solved. There's like elemental magic in here, and there's just a lot thrown in this book. It was inspired by Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I can't remember the author, so forgive me. I do need to read that. It's a classic. And so there's like a twist in here and all kinds of stuff. I just thought it wasn't that well done. Like, it was fun, and I'm sure that some people might really like it, but I thought that there was a lot happening and I didn't like all of the modern things that were in here. It was a modern story, but like she's in this English manor and she has like a butler and maids and things like that, which I know that a lot of people still do in England and if they're royalty, but she would like text her butler like, have them meet me in the library, like I don't know. It just seemed really weird to me. So this is the author of a couple other books that I do want to read, so hopefully I like those more. I think this might have been one of her first books, but unfortunately for me this was like a 2.5, maybe 3 stars. Like, it was fun, but it needed some help. Then I started the first part of this month. I did the hike-a-thon. I'm so sorry, that video is coming out very soon. It just takes me forever to edit readathon vlogs, and I did 2 back to back, and then I just wasn't feeling the best, so sorry about that. It's coming out soon, but for that one, I started Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco because I had a beat up paperback of it that I wanted to read, and I wish that I wouldn't have done it because this took over my month, and I was supposed to read The Raven Boys and follow along with Books and Lala's readathon, and I didn't do it. So I read Stalking Jack the Ripper, Hunting Prince Dracula, and Escaping from Houdini. I didn't get Capturing the Devil in time, but I am going to be reading that next month. So let's talk about this book first. So this is set in Victorian London during the Jack the Ripper era. Audrey Rose wants to be a forensic scientist, and so she dissects bodies with her uncle to learn like how they died and things like that, and just to learn more about anatomy and all kinds of stuff. And then the Jack the Ripper murders start to happen, and she winds up getting involved with her uncle and his other apprentice, Thomas Cresswell. And so there is an awesome romance in here, but how everyone preaches about these books, I thought the romance was going to be the main plot, and it isn't. Audrey Rose like learning and becoming a scientist, and the mystery of the deaths and the women and all of that is like more of the main of the plot. It was very well balanced in that way. I thought the murder mystery part was really going to bother me because I don't like really creepy, somewhat realistic type stories, and since Jack the Ripper was like an actual thing, I just thought it was going to bug me more, but I loved it. I didn't actually find it scary at all. It is very graphic and gory at parts. The way that it was written is just so fun, and it didn't really bother me, and I love Thomas Cresswell. I do think that this book is misleading because on the back it says, he murdered women in cold blood, he terrorized an entire city, he taunted those of us who hunted him down, but despite all these horrors in the end, I could not deny I was the girl who loved Jack the Ripper. I understand why it's there, because they want to sell some books, but it's a very, without spoiling anything, that is a very misleading little clip there. But regardless of that, I really liked this. I thought it was great. The ending for me brought it down from a 5-star to a 4-star because it was just a little bit too over the top. At the very end, it was kind of more of a retelling of a different famous gothic horror novel, and so I didn't really love that because it wasn't in the rest of the book, and I thought it was just a little bit over the top and intense and dramatic compared to like the entire book as a whole, if that makes sense. But I still really loved it, and I wound up giving this one 4 stars. Then on my camping trip, I took Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. Look at me reading by the fire here. Oh my god, this was like the best book to read by the campfire at night in the woods. Oh, it was great. It was just creepy enough that it was atmospheric and fun, but I wasn't like scared out of my mind. So this one is the second book in the series, so I can't tell you too much other than that Audrey winds up going to a Romanian castle to study forensics, and then more murder mysteries happen and something to do with Dracula. I loved this one. This was my favorite in the series so far. It was so atmospheric. I love the Romanian setting. I loved all the Dracula inspired mystery and lore, and we learned a lot about the history of Dracula and vampires, and it was really cool. So I really loved this one, like so much more. Again, the ending was super crazy, over the top. Like, I don't know why it bothered me because I've read endings of books where they've been unbelievable and crazy, but I think it's just because the rest of the book wasn't as insane, which I get because you want to have like a big intense ending, but it was just it was a bit much, just a little bit like, I don't know, like just some of the descriptions I was like, ooh, a little bit too much. So I did wind up giving this one 4 stars just like the other one. I still love it. I just think the endings are just a little bit too over the top, but overall still really great. Then I read Escaping from Houdini, and this is the 3rd book in the series. Again, can't say too much about it except for that Audrey Rose is on a cruise ship with this one. It's like basically the first cruise ship that has like a carnival / magic show on it, and then murder mysteries start to happen. So at this point you're kind of like, okay, clearly Audrey Rose is cursed and she just murder follows her everywhere, but that's kind of the point of a murder mystery. What I loved about this one is the cruise ship setting, because I love going on cruises. Granted, this is like scary and creepy and, you know, messed up, but I did like the setting a whole lot. I liked some of the extra characters that were in here. I'm not sure why. I think I just liked the Roman castle, the Romanian castle setting like so much more, and at this point this kind of felt like a little bit unnecessary, but I did like the overall idea. However, like there was a bunch of murders and things happening at the shows, and then the guests of the cruise ship would just keep going to the shows, and then another murder would happen. So sorry if that's a spoiler, I don't really think that it is, but I just was like, no, you know, after like the first murder, I'd be like camped up in my room because it only takes 4 days to get to America, which is where they're going, I think. And I'd be like, I'm done. I'm just gonna hang out in my room. Sorry. And so that part again was unrealistic. I hate saying that because it's, you know, it's not exactly a fantasy book or anything. There's nothing paranormal or anything like that, but it's, you know, it's a fun YA murder mystery. There's gonna be some unrealistic stuff, but for me, I was just like, no, once again. So, but I still, like, I know I keep saying that, I still like this book. I gave this one 3.5 stars overall. I'm really excited to see how they end it. I'm a little bit getting burnt out on murder mysteries because I read these and some other ones as well, but I still really enjoyed it. Still love Thomas and Audrey, and yeah, they're great. Then last weekend I read The Picture of Dorian Gray because I was like, I have only read like one classic this entire year, and the ones I wanted to get to this fall I really wanted to get to, and then my husband bought me this one last year for Christmas, and I forgot that I had it, and I found it, and I was like, I'm just gonna start reading this, and I'll just read it slowly over, you know, September and October because classics take me longer, and I read this in 2 days. Granted, it's only 200 pages, but it's, you know, it's an adult classic. It's by Oscar Wilde, of course. It's about a very vain young man who gets a painting done of him, and then mysterious things happen. I don't want to say too much more in case you haven't read this because I hadn't, and it was awesome. Oh my god, the whole time I was completely sucked in with these men and their vanity and their negativity and their cynicalness of life, and then Dorian Gray is not as bad as you think in the beginning, and then things just go haywire and crazy, and I don't know, the writing was just so good. I just was literally like on the couch, like my husband was so happy because he was playing video games, and I was just like, yeah, you can keep playing video games, honey, I'm still reading. And I just was like, oh, I took this everywhere with me, which I don't normally do with classics. I completely abandoned Escaping Houdini in the middle of it to finish this one in 2 days. I loved it so much. And the ending, I was like, oh my gosh, please don't let me down. Please don't let me down. Oh, it didn't let me down. It was amazing. I just thought it was so great. It was so creepy and just gothic and delicious. And I gave this one 5 stars. It's now one of my all-time favorite classics. Gotta read this. And then lastly, but not lastly, because I read this like in the middle of the month, I read Night Film by Marisha Pessl. So this is an adult contemporary murder mystery, sort of paranormal, sort of, I don't know how to explain it. I read this one purely because I was like, I want to get this one out of the way so I can trade it or sell it if I don't like it, because basically the entire synopsis and style of this book is something that I don't like. Like, I don't like contemporary very often. I definitely don't like modern murdery, like killery, dramatic horror, like modern day without paranormal stuff. Like, I don't like that at all. It's too realistic and it creeps me out. I don't tend to love adult books. And yeah, there's definitely trigger warnings in here because there's scenes with like sexual abuse. I think there might be talk or scenes of rape, I can't remember. Lots of really dramatic, intense things. So this book is about a reporter named Scott McGrath. He has tried to do reports and things on this very famous director named Cordova. When Cordova's daughter Ashley winds up committing suicide, Scott is like not having it, and he thinks that she was actually murdered, and so he starts his own private investigation to figure out what happened to her. So the really cool thing about this book is it's told in the regular narrative, you know, just like a regular book, but then there are all of these like text and emails and internet findings and things that we get to find with Scott. And there's also an interactive app, which I really wish that I would have known about before I read the book, because there's all this extra stuff that goes along with the book. And you basically, like, he goes on this really dark website that's about the film director, and they have all these like findings and articles and different things on there that he's using to gather information for his book. This book, oh my god, I was so completely obsessed with this book. And it just goes to show that good writing is good writing, because like I said, everything about this book meant I should have not liked this book. And I absolutely loved it. And it was very creepy. It wasn't like scary, but it was like very creepy and very dark and kind of trippy, and you didn't really know what was happening and what was real. And you got so invested in the characters. He winds up teaming up with a couple of younger kids in here that, oh, it's just so good. And I just loved it. It makes me want to read Neverworld Wake so badly now, and also want to like just listen to this one on audio. So the ending of this one was just a tiny bit anticlimactic, a little bit of a letdown based on like how intense and amazing the story was. I mean, there's like supernatural elements and all kinds of crazy, crazy things in here. I loved it, and I just literally, like, I thought about it, I took it everywhere, I talked to Jeff about it. It was just one of those books that I was just like, oh my god, what's happening? What's going on? Are my characters gonna be okay? I was so shocked and so happy with how much I loved this book, despite like what it was about and like all of that stuff. But it just goes to show that you really don't know what you're gonna like, and so you should really try as many things as you can. This was just like my out of my comfort zone read for this year, and it was like one of my favorite reads of the year. Even though the ending was like a little bit lackluster and it could have been a little bit better, there was like an element in the ending that is totally up my alley, and if you guys know me from watching my channel, then you will know what I'm talking about if you've read this. There was like this slight, almost magical element thing, that mystery lore thing in here at the end that I was like, but I love that. So I don't want to give away anything, but I love this, but definitely has some sexual content in here. Not like a crazy amount, but I would say it's more adult as far as like there's gore and violence, and there's the films that Cordova does, they're very dark and intense, and like a lot of them became illegal to watch and all that kind of stuff. So definitely don't go into this if you aren't able to handle that, or if you're not of appropriate age, because this is a full-on adult novel. But I loved it so much, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So those are all the books that I physically read for the month of September. I'm really proud of myself because I read 5 books. I DNF'd one, and I got halfway through another book that you'll see in my October wrap up. But Night Film was like 600 pages. All of the Stalking Jack the Rippers were almost 500 pages. So I was really happy based on how my entire year was. Like, this is my favorite reading month so far as how much I love the books and how much I got read. And then I listened to almost 10 audiobooks, so stay tuned tomorrow because my audiobook wrap up will be up tomorrow. I'll link it up here in the cards once it's available, and I'll talk about all my delicious audiobooks that I listened to there because I had a really good month there as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time on The Bright Side. Bye!